Communism is a really open word and is poorly understood. Many people think it means socialism, or they use it to describe any country with strong state control. In reality, communism is a theoretical concept, and what people call communist today is often very far from the original idea. What we are going to talk about today is what really differs a communist economy and state from other forms of government, like a democracy. In theory, socialism is meant to remove inequality and give everyone what they need. There is no private property and people don't directly own anything. Instead, everything is owned collectively by society. There is no elite or upper class controlling others, and ideally, everyone has the same rights and access to resources. You might think this is a perfect concept, where everyone, not only the rich, can live equally and have what they need. To achieve this, some leaders justify dictatorship as a way to guide the people in the right direction, but in practice, this often becomes an excuse to hold on to power rather than achieve equality. Dictatorships rarely distribute wealth or rights fairly, and power ends up concentrated in the hands of a few rather than shared among the workers. The government that came closest to achieving pure socialism was the French Communist Uprising in 1871, the Paris Commune. It survived a little over 2 months. This uprising occurred directly after the Franco-Prussian War, when Napoleon III was overthrown on March the 18th. Many people in Paris were frustrated with the government, which had failed to protect them or address the hardship caused by war. They instigated a revolution, attempting to create a society run entirely by workers. The Commune was remarkable because it was the first real workers' government. It created democratic councils where delegates were elected and recallable, abolished the standing army in favor of citizen militias, and experimented with transferring factories to workers' control. It also attempted to provide social reforms, like cancelling debts and improving equality in education and wages. However, it failed in several ways. The biggest problem was the lack of manpower and ability to gain control over Versailles, which allowed the government to regroup and crush the commune. In addition, Paris alone could not produce all the goods its people needed, and the revolution had no control over the rest of France. In other words, while it achieved socialism on a small scale, it could not fully implement it nationwide and make it durable. Later, states like the USSR also fell short of socialism. While the state owned companies and planned the economy, workers themselves had no real control, and elites still existed in the form of party leaders and bureaucrats. The intended equality never fully materialized. Similarly, countries often called communist today, like China, Vietnam, or Cuba, are only partially socialist in a very limited sense. They also allow markets to operate, though strictly regulated in favor of the state, and maintain authoritarian governments without genuine elections. In practice, these countries often resemble hybrid economies, a mix of state control and capitalism, rather than the worker-controlled, classless society socialism envisions. Another reason socialism rarely succeeds is structural. Coordinating an entire economy to meet everyone's needs is extremely complex, and defending a socialist state requires organization that can create temporary hierarchies. External pressures like sanctions, blockades, or hostile neighbors also make long-term stability difficult. Even the Paris Commune struggled because it was isolated, and larger-scale socialism often fails because governments or elite capture power and undermine worker control. In modern times, socialism is often confused with social democracy, like in Nordic countries. These nations provide high equality and strong social safety nets, but they are still capitalist, with private ownership and markets. This contrast shows why communism, or true socialism, is not what most people imagine today. In conclusion, communism, or rather socialism, is not really what it seems. It has only really worked in theory. Historical attempts show it is really difficult to implement fully, and many so-called communist governments prioritize power over equality, keeping elites and markets in place. The Paris Commune showed that socialism can be achieved on a small scale, but historical experience demonstrates the challenges of scale, coordination, and survival in a hostile world. Understanding this helps clarify why communism today often looks very different from its original ideal. Now we know that communism today isn't really communism what it was before, or what it was in theory. If you like this video, leave a like and maybe subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Bye.